Our last installment of our short lessons through Mark's Gospel takes us to the end of Mark's Gospel. We've already seen Jesus come into Jerusalem. The crowds are beginning to gather there for the celebration of the Passover. And Jesus is doing what Jesus has been doing throughout the Galilee already in his ministry. He is teaching, he's out about sharing all kinds of things with the crowds, and everyone's captivated. His teaching is clear, and everyone is captivated. And of course, that's only further infuriating all of those who have wanted to eliminate him since early in Mark's Gospel. So they want to entrap him. As we're in chapter 12, they want to entrap him with all kinds of questions that they think he'll answer incorrectly and prove that he must be a blasphemer or that he must not be holy. And they ask him all kinds of questions about whether people should pay taxes and what happens in the resurrection and what commandment is the greatest commandment. They're all set to test Jesus, and Jesus wisely answers all of their questions. And then the holy folks don't want to ask him any more questions. Jesus warns the disciples that the sacrifice of following him is a tremendous sacrifice, and that those who choose to follow him will be hated for his name. And it's probably still true in so many places where it's literally dangerous to proclaim and profess a faith in Jesus. He warns the disciples to stay awake, to stay alert. They have no way of knowing when the Son of Man will return. And we wonder if the disciples understand what is about to happen at all. Even though Jesus has predicted his death, we wonder what they really understand about what's going to happen. And as time for the Passover draws closer, there's still the continued plotting and planning to try to destroy Jesus. So Jesus has gone to Bethany. It's actually a short distance, but if you travel to Israel today, Bethany is a Palestinian occupied territory. And despite its very short distance from Jerusalem, it takes a while to go around to get into Bethany. But while he is in Bethany, a woman comes with a very expensive jar of ointment called nard. And she takes that ointment and pours it on his head and begins to anoint him. And some people are complaining, criticizing her and saying that it was so expensive, such an expensive gift. Why on earth would you take such an expensive gift and waste it that way? And Jesus suggests that she's just preparing his body for burial. And in the meantime, speaking of expense, Judas has gone to the chief priests to strike a deal for the money that they will pay him in order for him to betray Jesus. The disciples find a place to eat the Passover meal. Jesus announces to them there that one of them would betray him. And as they sat at table, Jesus took bread and blessed it and broke it and shared it with them. He took the cup and blessed it and gave it to them. They shared that last meal. They sang a hymn and went out onto the Mount of Olives. And Jesus warned Peter that before the cock would crow 3 times, he would deny Jesus. And Peter said no. Oh no. So he asked Peter, James, and John to wait with him while he prayed, to stay awake and to wait. They were tired. They fell asleep. Jesus asked his Father to remove this cup from him if it were possible. And as he finished praying, Judas came with the chief priests and scribes and elders, and he kissed Jesus to let the guards know who the man was who should be arrested. The guards seize him. The chief priests and elders question him. Some who are present will make false testimony against him. Jesus will be accused of blasphemy when he acknowledges that he is indeed the Son of Man. He was beaten, ultimately taken to the Roman governor Pilate, who continued questioning him. The custom was for Pilate to release a prisoner before the festival of Passover. The crowd called for the release of a prisoner named Barabbas. And the same crowd called for the crucifixion of Jesus. Jesus was made to carry his cross from Pilate's headquarters to Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. If you travel to the old city of Jerusalem today, you can still walk the Stations of the Cross, the Via Dolorosa, the Trail of Tears, the Path of Tears. You can still walk it. There are, at most of the stations, churches where you can actually stop and say prayers. On the pilgrimages that I've led to Israel, we've been blessed and fortunate enough to be able each time to pray at each of the stations along the way in the old city. But it is hard to imagine when you walk that path, walking it with that heavy cross, because people will often have crosses as they make their way through that path, and you might see 8 or more people trying to carry that cross. As Jesus is being crucified, he's being taunted by those around him. He saved others. Why can't he save himself? But as he's hung there, a darkness comes over the earth for 3 hours between noon and 3 o'clock. And Jesus calls out the beginning of Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? He breathes his last, and the curtain of the temple is literally torn into from top to bottom. The women are watching. They are watching from a distance. And Joseph of Arimathea goes to ask for the body of Jesus. And he takes it and places it in a new tomb and rolls a stone in front of the opening. The women who had followed Jesus, still watching, planned to go and anoint him after the Sabbath. But when they went to the tomb, they did not find him there. The stone had been rolled away and he was gone, risen just as he had promised. And a young man wearing a white robe told the women to go back and tell the disciples that Jesus was going to meet them in the Galilee. He was ahead of them. Now, what do the women do? For that, you'll need to tune in for Easter Sunday sermon, as we will explore Mark's version of what happens with the resurrection witnesses. Blessings to you all. Thank you for taking part in this time of reading Mark's gospel together.